Shock Monkey Radio is created by adults for entertainment purposes. The views and opinions expressed here do not reflect the sponsors or FXPG Public Radio. For additional information, refer to the U.S. Bill of Rights. Stand warned.
So I was watching Misfits as well. I don't want to talk too much about it. I think I talked about it previously on older shows. Yeah. Yeah. EK's been watching it too. What's that? Nathan, he's just an annoying little bastard. What do they call him? A twat. He's a twat. Yes. He's a twat. And his power is immortality. And I was just thinking about if he never was killed, if he never got killed, but he had the power of immortality. Say you got it. Say you had the power of immortality. Say we lived in the comic book world and you got the power of immortality. When would you realize that? 150 years from now?
20 years.
You think you'd learn in 20 years? You would learn in 20 years. How?
I didn't age.
You didn't age? You think 20 years? EK says it's like 20 years, you don't age.
You'd notice.
I don't know.
I think I'd notice in 20 years if I didn't age at all.
No gray hair? It's like,
No more gray hair.
I would say it's maybe 50 years. Maybe 50 years. I mean, at what point, being an immortal, would you sit there and say, all right, what exactly is going on? All right? At what point do you look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, this has gotten out of hand? 100, 200 years? I mean, there are plenty of Twilight Zone episodes and sci-fi flicks that preach that mortality gives life its purpose. But just imagine if you're Dorian Gray or Thor, excuse me, or what's his name? What's that movie where the Kane still walks the earth with Henry Rollins? He never died. And even in modern fiction, there are the immortals like Al-Ghul and Vandal Savage. Sorry, I'm a DC fan. And, people who live forever. That seems boring to me, Highlander fans, because the longer you perceive time, the shorter it becomes. And you would get bored. You would get caught up in your vices. I mean, speaking of Highlander, look at that guy. He had, how many times has he stabbed himself in front of a chick in his apartment to get laid? I'm Connor McLeod from the Clan McLeod, and I'm immortal. How many times does that work for him?
I don't imagine.
So that's what I mean. It's like over time, over the centuries, you would become incredibly bored, and you would do things like that. Stab yourself in front of chicks just to get laid. Doesn't matter if you look like Christopher Lambert. I bet that guy could get laid anyway, even if he wasn't immortal. If you're in movies, you're probably good looking. Anyway. So it seems boring to live forever. And, like how many years until say there's a super, like the Misfits, there was a storm. And then all of a sudden, there's a ton of people out there with superpowers. And a couple of them are immortal, have immortality or something like that. At what point, would you say maybe 200 years pass or 150 years pass before somebody makes an immortal dating app? It's just something to think about. But it's funny because the morality of all.
Forever is a really long time to spend alone.
Say again?
Because forever is a really long time to spend alone.
See, EK's already coming up with taglines for the dating app because forever's a long time to spend alone. It's so. The funny thing is that all of these morality tales that involve immortality. There was this one Twilight Zone episode where a guy, I forget something, Mr. something, and he was immortal. And he grew up in ancient Greece, and he came across this mystic man. He did some voodoo over him and made him live forever. And so then he finally gets killed. And he's like, finally, at long last, the morality play that comes with the fiction of being immortal is the fact that, it's mortality that gives life its purpose. And you know what? If you're somebody like Thor, if you're somebody like Dorian Gray, if you're somebody like Vandal Savage, you wouldn't be necessarily innovative. You would be self-indulgent and bored and not feel a need to do anything right now. All right? What's the urgency if you're living forever? That's the point. And so it's funny because mortals seem to be innovative. They understand that life is finite, And I think that that's part of our consciousness as human beings. You know, you got to understand that, you know, it's like life doesn't go forever. It really doesn't. So you gotta strike while the iron's hot, make hay where the sun shines. All those platitudes. All right. So that's a very long way to basically summarize the theme of Who Wants to Live Forever by Queen. But touch my tears with your lips. Who can hit those notes? God. Freddie Mercury. He had extra T so he can hit like 4 registers. Seriously. Do some research into it. He had like extra molars, and it made him able to hit like 4 registers. And you know, since he grew up in England where there's nothing to do in the rain but stay inside and sing, you know, hey, got plenty of practice. What'd you say?
No doubt.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. No, that's a band from the 90s. I'm talking about Queen.